The rest of the man's titles don't matter. Don't mind the PhD, because that's past having doubts. And whenever we believe the Word of God, we'll stand on the Word. A man sat in this church one night in a very crippling disease. I can't remember the name of it, but he was brought up on the teaching that the day of miracles are gone. He didn't come forward for ministry, but on the way out he said to me, "Almost you persuaded me that Jesus is still the healer." And he's on his crutches. And I said, "Well, I've only almost persuaded you, then I failed on my call tonight. Because Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He never changes." A few weeks later, that man's confined to bed. He can't get out of bed. The disease has developed. And after intercession and spiritual warfare, whenever those lies of the devil were being pulled down and that man was being loosed, and we're praying that the eyes and ears of his spiritual understanding would be opened. That was a Sunday night, and he's lying in bed down at Ballymoney. The Lord begins to speak to him. The Lord begins to bring back the scriptures that he heard that night. He said it was like a light just lit up inside him. And he could see the truth of the Word of God. He turned away from idolatry, because if we put man's word ahead of the Word of God, it's idolatry. And as he began to ponder on these scriptures, there was a heat started on his head, and it burned right through to his very toes. And he got up in the morning and he took his children to school. There was a bereavement in the family somewhere in England. Later that week, he took a car and he headed to Larne and crossed to Scotland up into England. Healed by the power of God because of the insight of the Word of God. Because the eyes were opened. The spiritual understanding was shaken. And he received what belonged to him. It's an inheritance. Everything promised in the Bible is our inheritance today. We haven't time, but if we had time, we'd look at the three Hebrew children, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And the king, and they were in captivity. So we can't blame our circumstances for not believing the Word of God. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were in captivity. The king made a decree that when all this music sounded, they were to fall down and they were to worship an idol. And they wouldn't do it. And the king said, "If you don't do it, we're going to throw you into the fiery furnace. And we're going to heat it 7 times more than it's usually heated." Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego looked at Nebuchadnezzar. And they said, "We're not going to answer you carefully. We're not going to compromise, try to get you to bow down a bit. We're going to tell you the truth. The God that we serve is able to deliver us from the fiery furnace. And not only can he deliver us from the fiery furnace, he can deliver us from you, O King." But they didn't stop there. Their dedication, their persuasion of God in the hearts. And they're going to say, "But even he doesn't deliver us, Imagine these three men, and they're standing and they're facing the king, and they know the furnace has already been heated 7 times more. And they tell him, we know our God can deliver us. And then they go on to say, but if he doesn't deliver us, we're not going to worship your idol anyway. That's where persuasion comes in. No way, matter what happens, I'm not going to bow to the doctrines of devils. I'm not going to bow to the compromise of my forefathers. I'm going to stand on the Word of God. What happened to them? They were promoted. Isn't that some God to believe?